This video is sponsored by U.S AI.
What a crowd this is. Look at this. These are incredible people. You're incredible people.
The European Union is possibly as bad as China, just smaller. Well, I think we have a lot of foes. I think the European Union is a foe, what they do to us in trade. Now, you wouldn't think of the European Union, but they're a foe. But our allies have taken advantage of us more so than our enemies. One of the presidents of a big country stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? I said, no, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills.
That was Trump suggesting that Russia could potentially attack a NATO member without US retaliation. According to his top aides at the 2018 NATO summit, Trump came alarmingly close to withdrawing from NATO.
We're paying for far too much. NATO is helping Europe more than it's helping us.
Only last-minute interventions from his closest advisors kept him from following through. Yet some still argue, well, he's not really serious. He's negotiating with NATO, trying to get other NATO members to pay more. There is some truth in this, as NATO has a guideline for all members to spend 2% of their GDP on defense. Yet as shown in this table, not all countries meet this benchmark. Even now, 7 EU countries fall short. So surely once all members commit 2% of their GDP to defense, Trump will recommit to NATO, right? Not so fast. Even if all countries meet this target, the US remains by far the largest spender in NATO. And according to John Bolton, Trump's national security advisor at the time, Trump's goal here is not to strengthen NATO, it's to lay the groundwork to get out.
It would be a catastrophic mistake for the United States to drop out of NATO. But Donald Trump doesn't see it that way, nor do many of his close advisors, because they don't fundamentally understand what an alliance is all about. They view our alliance as we're defending these countries, and they're not paying for it. And since we're just doing this out of the goodness of our hearts anyway, who needs these alliances? This is deeply ingrained in Trump.
Trump is not the first US president to voice frustration over Europe's perceived shortcomings, but he is the first to openly threaten a departure from NATO because of it. Legally, however, Trump cannot make this decision alone. In 2023, US Congress passed a bill requiring congressional approval for any US withdrawal from NATO. That said, Trump could still choose to disengage from NATO without formally withdrawing. For example, he could propose that NATO members not meeting the 2% spending target lose protection, though this may violate NATO's mutual defense clause. Or he could withdraw most US forces, creating a dormant NATO with minimal support. Or he could adopt a pay-for-protection model, where Europe relies on the US mainly for nuclear defense, allowing partial US withdrawal. Though Trump hasn't officially supported these ideas, his rocky relationship with NATO suggests less US leadership in Europe's key military alliance. Is the EU ready to fill this gap? Not quite. A recent study shows that even though Europe has 1.9 million soldiers, they would only be able to field 300,000 in a conflict. Definitely not enough against Russia's 1.1 million active troops and 1.5 million reserves. But this is just the start, as it's only the first of 6 major ways a Trump presidency could shape Europe's future. But before we dive into reason 2, let me introduce you to a tool that's raising the stakes in the video creation space called U.S AI. As someone who's been making videos for almost 3 years, I can tell you a lot of work goes into these videos behind the scenes. Research, script writing, animation, creating thumbnails, the list goes on. But now, thanks to our amazing sponsor, U.S AI, things are about to get super interesting. U.S AI version 3 is launching soon, and it's going to be an absolute game changer. With this new version, you can create videos from scratch on any topic you can think of, just by using simple prompts. Let me show you how it works. For example, if I type, "Make me a long video about Dubai's rise in the global landscape," U.S AI instantly generates a stunning video, complete with B-roll and voiceover. And the best part? I can clone and add my voice to the video, and boom, U.S AI adds it seamlessly. U.S AI version 3 is a tool that does so much more than Sora, Pika, and Runway. And you can start with their current version today, for free. But if you want to clone your own voice and create videos without a watermark, I highly recommend their Plus version, starting at $20 per month. And if you use my code, you get 2 times the amount of video creation minutes in your very first month. It is so much more economical than expensive editing tools like Adobe. Now, let's move on to the second impact Trump could have on Europe, a reduction in support for Ukraine.
Do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled.
Okay, Trump, let's look at the facts. According to Kiel Institute, Europe has committed 192 billion euros to Ukraine so far, while the US has pledged roughly 100 billion euros. Yet Trump claims that the US has spent more than Europe, citing an astronomical figure of $250 billion. Simply put, Trump lied, something we might have to get used to again. Regardless, US support remains critical, especially next year, where the current estimates for total aid to Ukraine are around 100 billion euros. But without new US funding, this could fall to 80 billion euros. Contributions from Europe are expected to decrease rather than increase, with Germany planning significant cuts that could bring the total down to just 56 billion euros, nearly half of the original target. This reduction could mean that in just 3, 4, or 6 months, Ukraine might find itself without the necessary resources to sustain its defense. And combined with Trump's campaign promise to find a quick solution, this situation could lead to a deal that heavily favors Russia and disadvantages Ukraine.
I know Zelensky very well and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and that is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. And what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened.
For example, Trump could turn to the 2022 peace proposal that might be acceptable to Russia. This forces Ukraine to cede territory, give up on NATO membership, and limit its military. A settlement like this would set a dangerous precedent throughout the world, signaling to authoritarian leaders worldwide that aggression pays off. It could also raise the risk of Russia re-engaging to seize more Ukraine when it's stronger in the future, or even targeting other vulnerable nations like Georgia, Moldova, or even the Baltic states. Let's move on to the third impact Trump could have on Europe: trade.
To me, the most beautiful word, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks, in the dictionary today, and is the word tariff. It's more beautiful than love. The tariff, you make it so high, so horrible, so obnoxious.
One of Trump's most popular policy ideas is an aggressive 10 to 20% tariff on all products imported into the United States. Trade between the European Union and the United States is worth roughly 850 billion euros annually, making it the world's most valuable trading partnership.
We have a trade deficit of $300 billion with the European Union.
As usual, with Trump, you always have to check the actual numbers. According to Eurostat, in 2023, the EU exported about 500 billion euros in goods to the US, while the US exported 344 billion euros to the EU. This creates a surplus of around 158 billion euros, not quite the 300 billion euros Trump mentioned before. Still, though, the EU exports significantly more to the US than it imports, and the proposed tariffs could lead to a steep drop in EU exports to the US. And if we take a closer look at EU exports to the US, it seems that Germany just can't catch a break. Already dealing with a sluggish economy, Germany's manufacturing sector is highly dependent on US exports. The EU has set up a Trump task force to prepare for possible US election fallout. On tariffs, they're very clear. We will hit back fast, and we will hit back hard. The plan is to apply enough economic pressure to push Trump into quick negotiations, with some officials hopeful he'd be open to talks, especially on countering China together. It's unlikely to be that simple, though. Economists warn that Trump's tariffs will hurt Eurozone growth, adding to Europe's growing list of challenges. With China and the US both crucial trade partners, even a favorable US deal might backfire if it involves countering China, as this would once again hurt major exporters like Germany, who also have deep ties in Chinese markets. But it's not just about trade. A Trump win could shake up European politics even further, fueling right-wing nationalist parties that share his Make America Great Again ideals. In other words, Trump normalizes chaos and isolationism.
Make America great again. Make Europe great again. Hojrá, Donald Trump!
The Hungarian leader isn't alone here. Trump's appeal stretches across Europe, with leaders like Germany's Björn Höcke, the Dutch Geert Wilders, France's Marine Le Pen, and Italy's Giorgia Meloni seeing him as somewhat of a modern role model. And the European citizens think so too. Just look at the European Parliament elections. In 2014, before Trump's first term, only 48 seats went to far-right populists. In 2024, that number surged to 109 seats. And this is with a smaller parliament. And if you include the conservative ECR group, that rises to 187 seats to 118 back in 2014. And right-wing populist parties have already joined coalition governments in 7 EU countries, echoing Trump's nationalist, anti-immigrant, anti-EU, and for most, with the exception of Meloni in Italy, anti-Ukraine stances. In fact, their policies are often illiberal too, aiming to control the media, courts, and central banks. A Trump win would likely boost these parties further and normalize their positions. The AfD, for example, could gain even more ground in next year's German elections, and Le Pen might even clinch the French presidency on her 4th try in 2026. Now, let's move on to the 5th impact Trump could have on Europe, a threat to democracy.
We did great in 2016. A lot of people don't know. We did much better in 2020. We won. We did win. It was a rigged election. It was a rigged election.
I'm going to be a dictator for one day.
I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not going to have to vote.
The United States is one of the world's oldest democracies. It was founded in 1776, and when George Washington, the first US president, peacefully handed over power to John Adams in 1797, it was a groundbreaking moment. Most power transfers in history had involved violence, but the US set an example that inspired Europe, which later formed one of the world's most stable democratic unions. Today, however, this legacy is under threat. Trump's language around elections, his claims of fraud, and even talks of dictatorship weaken the foundations of democracy, not only in the US, but globally. Let's take a look at the 2023 Democracy Index, which measures areas like electoral process, civil liberties, government functioning, political participation, and political culture. So let's look at a map and see how countries do. Dark green marks full democracies, light green indicates flawed democracies, yellow shows hybrid regimes, and orange to red represent authoritarian regimes. What really stood out to me is the almost even split between authoritarian regimes and democracies. As for the EU, it still appears stable, but a Trump presidency could put that stability at risk. And this brings us to the final impact of a Trump presidency on Europe. It forces Europe to take matters into its own hands. Take the pandemic, for example. Faced with a shared challenge, almost like a common enemy, EU countries quickly agreed to a historic $750 billion joint borrowing plan, something previously unheard of. A similar scenario could unfold with Trump. Some EU countries favor Eurobonds to raise funds to finance Ukraine and defense, though Germany and the Netherlands oppose it. Supporters hope that a second Trump term might push these nations, just like the pandemic did, towards shared financial responsibility. On trade, Trump's return could really drive the EU toward a more protectionist stance, something France has been pushing for years. In the end, having a perceived common enemy often drives change in the EU, even with its very divided nations and opinions. A combative Trump presidency might even force treaty changes and limiting the veto power that often slows EU decisions. For those wanting a more united, integrated EU, a Trump presidency could actually be a major catalyst for deeper integration. So, is Europe ready for Trump? Likely not. But it needs to be, and soon. Regardless of whether Harris or Trump wins, the EU must move toward greater independence from powerful allies like the US. A Kamala Harris presidency would undoubtedly be friendlier to Europe and more aligned with EU goals.
Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO.
However, a Trump presidency might drive the EU in an unexpected direction, accelerating integration and prompting more decisive action, something the EU is dearly missing in today's format. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, a big shout out to our Discord community for helping with this video. You really are the best. And if you aren't on Discord yet, join us today with a link in the description. And if you want to support us further, please consider joining our Patreon. Until next time.